Hello and welcome to this bonus video, another bonus video that is part of the Watercolour Tech and Play series. I'm Mary Helen. I'm a transpersonal art therapist and artist, and I help people reclaim joy through creativity. And I also help people figure out how to step into creativity by giving them some techniques to help them develop their visual language. So today I've got the grid. So the other videos took you one by one through some different foundational techniques, and today what I offer you is a grid method for a way to warm yourself up to get into creativity, to get into a creative process. Because like if you go to the gym, right, and you're in a gym class, you don't just like straight away go into the most intense exercise, right? No, they give you a gentle warm up to warm up your muscles, to start to transition you from not exercising into strenuous exercising. Guess what? It's the same with art. We always want to warm ourselves up because it would be, unless you're an artist, it's really unlikely that you're going to sit down and just start making an artwork, right? We always have little rituals that we do as artists to warm ourselves up, bring ourselves into our creative process. That could just be mixing paints. It could just be testing out some, our pigments. It could just be doing some thumbnail sketches. We warm ourselves up to prime ourselves to be ready to, our creative muscles basically, to get into a creative process. So enough talking, let's get into it. What do you need? You need all the stuff that you had from the other videos. So if you haven't watched that, I do say go to the Watercolour Tech Play series. However, if you've just discovered this video, it's a standalone too, but maybe you pause along the way to grab the things that you need. So you're in control of that. We're going to start with a nice piece of watercolor paper, and we're going to draw a really simple grid with 6 spaces on it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just draw it in. Wibbly wobbly, the better. And in the first quadrant, I'm gonna call it wet on wet. So I'm taking you through a warm-up. I do this a lot with my workshops, even if they are more art therapy based. So if they're art therapy based, I will still provide a couple of techniques to support people and warm them up so they get ready for the part where they kind of go off and find their own way. So we're gonna wet the page with our water. I'm gonna chuck this over here. Because it can be really overwhelming to just be thrown straight into a creative process if you're not quite ready for it. It's kind of like waking up and, I don't know, jumping straight on your computer to answer emails. Like, you are not awake. And you shouldn't do that, even though I'm the culprit of that. And I shouldn't say what you should and shouldn't do, but it's probably not advisable. All right, I hate that being there. I'm going to put it over here. Okay. And now I'm gonna just wet the second one as well. Just that little square. So I'm just pushing a bit of water into the page, and I'm giving it a bit of space to activate the watercolor paper. And yes, please use watercolor paper. It doesn't have to be expensive. I'm gonna do the third one as well. Oh, I really should have written in the things. Oh well. Please use watercolor paper for your own sanity. All right, so we'll start with the wet on wet, and I'm going to choose, what color am I going to choose? What color are you going to choose? I think, you know what, I'm going to go for some browns because I don't use them that often, and I want to give some love to that. So wet on wet, we are going to drop little dabs of our watercolor onto the page. Isn't that gorgeous? Very chocolatey. It's a warm kind of color. So for wet on wet, we're just dropping this in. So if you've done my other videos, you've completed this, but now we're going to do it in one page. So this is like a really good reference page for testing things out. It's also just a lovely activity to warm you up. And it's an activity that you can do when you're like, I want to make art, but I don't really feel like it. Oh, look, it's already going into the upper quadrants, which is fine, by the way. Yeah, you can do this when, yeah, you like, I want to make art, but I don't quite feel like it. Let this video be a companion. Just start from here. You don't have to listen to all my preamble. Start from here and just follow along. Don't think, just do, just be, and just let yourself warm up. I never get bored of doing this activity, never, ever, ever, because it's always different, because whatever color I choose is different. On any given day, I'm different. So there's always something new for me to discover, although I do tend to go about it the same way. I should try and change it up, shouldn't I? But we do what we do, right? We have our own patterns. I'm adding in 3 colors. I'm going... Yeah, usually I stick to 2, so I'm taking my own advice. And please do like this video and any video you watch. And subscribe to the channel if you want to. I will be doing lots of mini-series with different art materials. And they'll all be about, yeah, finding your kind of freedom through the medium, through activities that just free you up and you don't have to think so much. You just get to explore and really be with the art material without there being the pressure to create some sort of outcome. Okay, fun. So that's wet on wet. Now the next one we're going to do is salt. So just write that down in the second square. I'm just going to show you done the wet on wet. And maybe I shouldn't have wet the next square, but I don't mind those whispers coming from the previous quadrant. It's like, hello, hello, second quadrant. Guess what? We've got some beautiful things coming your way. Alrighty. So here we go. I'm going to pick a color. I'm going to fill up that whole space. This one you'll need salt for if you haven't got salt. Again, I'm just going to quickly tell you, you can pause the video. Again, we got some whispers coming through. I love this. It's like passing on the message. Guess what? You've got some really, you're about to be filled with color. Okay, so for salt, we just want a little bit of salt. Sound effects are good. I'm going to make some little piles. Already you can see the salt starting to absorb the water and pigment. And I'm tempted to just chuck a bit in there too. Why not? We'll need to let that sit. Yeah, the true nature of this will be revealed once it's dry, which is always the way with watercolor. But isn't it lovely just to see it in its beginning state as it's starting to transform? I think that's something that's really lovely, that you get to witness things changing over time with watercolor. Just look at that. The spillover. Okay. I'm moving really fast through this, so the benefit of these videos is you can pause. You can even put it on silent and not listen and just look. So the next one we're going to do is a gradient. Just going to write that in there. And we'll have a natural gradient sort of happening here, but I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to let it be there for sure, but I am going to ignore it. So for gradient, we're going from we're going from dark to light, or light to dark, but obviously we'll go dark first, right? So a gradient can go right to left, left to right, bottom to top, top to bottom. But I'll show you darkest at the top, and then we are making it lighter at the bottom. and that's naturally picked up some of that pink. I'm going to put more water in here and push up the pigment. This can be done on dry paper too. It does not have to be wet on wet, but the wet on wet can be really nice too. I'm going to put more pigment up here. Really what this offers is to see what is the darkest this paint can go and what is the lightest this can go. So we're really just meeting the pigment and seeing where it goes. I'm sure this could be lighter, and I could bring in some paper towel to take away some of that, but I'm not so fussed, and there's a lot of water on there, so I'm interested to see how that dries, to be honest. And I won't really add in any other color because I quite just like that. I want to see what this color looks like when it dries. I really want to know yeah, what each part of it kind of looks like. All right, moving swiftly. Okay, so the next one we're going to do, and if you've done the watercolor series, the Tech and Play, then you've done this. We're going to do resistant. So you need an oil pastel or a wax pastel, or even a permanent marker can work, but I think the oil pastel is the way to kind of go. So pick any color that you like, knowing that this is a bit of an experiment. We don't know how it's gonna turn up. I'm gonna do this time, something different for me. And then I am going with my dry page, and I'm just gonna pop in some color, see what turns out. Sometimes it's sensational and sometimes it's a bit of a wah, and that's okay, because again, we are just meeting the pigments, and now we've introduced a whole nother medium and a whole nother color, and again, we won't know until it's really dried. We're just going to chuck it in there and see what happens. And I'm doing a bit of a gradient here, a 3-part gradient, I'm going to call it. So you can see I've got one color, second, third, and then I can blend at the edges. Put a bit of water. And that doesn't need that much encouragement. That's already doing its own thing. Yeah, so we do that. Depending on what color you choose, you get a different reaction. So yeah, we'll see. This gradient has gone bonkers. It's maybe I put too much water and I'm just gonna push it up a little bit. Push, push, push. Push, push, push. The texture of the paper is really grabbing. Oh. These are the moments, right, with watercolor. You just can't control it. You gotta let it do its thing. But yeah, very grainy, that pigment, which I love. I love seeing the grain of the different pigments, particularly when you are doing a bit one of each color and you see the other pigments turn up in the sea of the other color. It's like amazing. I love it. Okay, so the next one we're gonna do, again, just pause the video if you need to go a little bit slower. You're in control of that. These videos are great for people who maybe you don't really like coming to workshops or going to groups. Maybe it's hard to be in groups because, well, so many reasons, and maybe the way groups are or workshops are delivered are just a bit challenging for you to process things. So having a video like this is really handy, because if that doesn't feel really obtainable to you, then you can hang out here, you know, and you're not alone. You're here with me. I don't know who you are though, but we get to hang out a little bit and get a bit geeky over watercolor. All right, so this one is a texture one. And I'm going to use plastic, and paper towel. So pause the video and grab it if you don't have it. Otherwise, for this one, I'm going to do wet on wet again. Oh, I love it. It's grabbing colors from the other one. They all just want to interact. It's a real party, isn't it? And also just check out the color of my water. That's one of my favorite things about watercolor. Like, obviously it goes into the murky things, but in this, when you're just using one or two colors, it makes like some very gorgeous looking water, which we remember not to drink. If you've got a drink nearby, sometimes that happens. I'm gonna let that sit just a little bit as I just grab some paper and grab a bit of plastic. I've got a little plastic that I've been using on something else, so I might have some carryover from other paintings, which is fine. Okay. For this one, it's already kind of telling us pick these colors, Mary Helen, so let's do it. I'm going to do a gradient with two colors, just using the ones that are here. Why fight it? Listen to the watercolor. And then in the middle, we get a little smush, smush, smush. Oh, lovely. I'm going to add a little bit more color there, because I am going to lay down my surfaces, I don't know really what to call them, but they are a surface, they are a fabric as well. So I'm going to lay them on top of my other surface, which is the watercolor paper that also has the watercolor on it, so it's almost like a little sandwich. I'm going to lay that on, and I'm going to scrunch it up first with the paper. I'm going to put that down and leave it. Obviously, paper is going to absorb. Well, maybe, depending on what paper you've got. And then with my plastic, I'm going to pop that on. I've got a really soft plastic, you know, the ones that they have at the supermarket when you get fruit. So I just cut up little strips from the bags, and it's just gives really nice texture because it's so soft, and one bag is going to last you a long time with watercolor. So yeah, good way to reuse them. All right, so guess what? We're doing well. Let's have a little look. We've got our wet on wet. Whoopsie. You can see how much I don't care, and I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. It's just these incidents of things happening are just so part of the process. And if you do struggle with the perfectionist piece, which we all do in some sort of capacity, but particularly it comes up in art, I just want to acknowledge how painful that can be, or a moment of suffering for you when something happened in your art making that changed everything, and maybe you really liked it, and it can be upsetting when things change. So I just want to acknowledge that while that doesn't happen to me so much, I do acknowledge that it does happen to people. And it's a bit of a loss in your art making, isn't it? So it can be a little moment of suffering where it's like, oh, I really like that, and now because I've moved that, I've lost that thing that I created. So that does happen, and it's not about getting rid of that and being like, well, don't feel that way. It's about just noticing, something changed, and I didn't want it to change. I was really hoping it to stay the same. Just giving you a bit of a close-up there, because as it's starting to dry, it's making really lovely visuals for me. By the way, it's not always about the visual when we're making art, but if, you're a seeing person, it tends to be. But, maybe I make a video that is not about looking and is more about feeling and having a play with, not relying on your eyes so much, and actually removing that sensory input to see if you can listen to another part of yourself. All right. So many ideas, right? Okay, let's continue with our grid. Now, the last one I'm going to do is different to what we did in the watercolor series. We are going to use our breath. So if you've got a straw, get a straw. If you don't have a straw, it actually doesn't matter, because this is a really short and sweet one. So just write down breath. If you have a straw, write down that you use a straw. The straw will give you direction, but our breath can just, it goes everywhere, right? Where air goes everywhere. It's in every crevice of everything around us, pretty much. And so, oh, it's a bit inspiring, that idea, that wherever our breath is reaching places we don't even know about. So I'm going to be really generous with getting quite wet with my pigment. I called these little, at a workshop the other night, little bubbles on the page, which didn't quite translate to people. And really you're making a 3D drop of water on the page, like a raindrop, but a colorful raindrop that's almost like sitting on your window pane, a drop of water, and it's 3D. So I will bring it closer once I've done it. Oh, I'll do it now just so you can see. So I think, can you see that? Yes. Yeah, they're just 3D blobs. We're going to make it quite blobby. And get a couple of colors that you're working with, or any color that you want to explore. So I'm making it quite wet, and I'm putting little beads of water. I hope I've described that in so many different ways that it's reaching you. Droplets of water, beads of water, bubbles of water. Look at all the little mini ones. Aren't they just delightful? Ah! Calm down, Mary Helen. I mean, this is the excitement of art making for me. Every moment there's just something really exciting happening, and yeah, it's really, for me, it really brings me into my being. I'm really here for each moment when I'm noticing what's happening and I'm not striving, which is really hard, because there definitely are artworks that I do that are striving. Like last year I did a painting course, and we had to recreate a master's painting, and I did a Bonnard. It was a large scale, and I tell you what, I was having a bit of a breakdown there at my canvas, but it was very character building. And I liked that challenge because it was a challenge that I chose. And so often in life, you don't get to choose your challenges. So when you choose your challenge, and you're standing at the wall, quite literally the challenge, it's just really interesting to notice your process. And I noticed how I procrastinated. I noticed the self-talk that came up. Yeah, it was really fascinating. And I also noticed how I pushed through that. So sometimes there were periods of like not doing a lot, and then I'd like, you know, cheerlead myself and be like, come on, just do it. So that works for me. That doesn't work for everyone though, but we're all different. So we have to find out what language helps us through. Okay, so I've got these lovely bubbles on the page, or beads or drops. And I'm going to bring this up so you can see, but I'm just going to use my breath to blow at the bubbles. If you have a straw, you can use a straw and you'll have a bit more of a directional mark, but I'm just going to use my breath because we've all got that, right? So it means that you don't need to grab anything extra. There goes the paper. So just a couple of blows, and then give yourself a break. You don't want to hyperventilate, and then you can come back in. Oh, there's some beautiful mixing going on there. Blow from a different angle. It's like a big gust of wind. And what I do really appreciate that is how it spills over into the other spaces. Like, I love the party that is happening here, the art party, the watercolor art party. All right, so my paper came off. That's all good. Like, you can see the beautiful kind of wispy clouds that have come out there. I can see like a creature, some sort of four-legged creature with horns. I'm thinking Mr. Tumnus, and he's dancing through the clouds. Good on you, Mr. Tumnus. Have a break from all that chaos in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I wonder what you see. Like, let's take a moment there, because you will have approached this differently. Like, I hope. And if you did the same as me and chose the same colors and did the same patterns, absolutely fine too. I mean, we learn through imitating other people, right? I mean, when we learn to talk, we're listening to the people around us and we're saying what they say, right? We do what they do because we're natural mirrors for each other. It's part of how we learn and grow and how we're socialized, for better or worse. And maybe you did something really different. So if you did, I'd love to see what you did. Show me your grid. You can tag me at Mark and Movement over on Instagram or Facebook, or flick me a message with an image. Would love to see. Honestly, I just get a kick out of it, because even though some people might say, oh, we just all did the same thing, it's not the same thing. I want to put salt in there. Follow those instincts. I want to put a little bit more salt in here too, because the water has shifted so many times. I just want to give it a chance. Yours probably won't, because you're probably not lifting up your page so much. I am, because I'm showing you what I'm doing. Get it at the edge there. All right, so that's our grid. This is a warm-up that you can do. I know I've kind of chatted through it with all my ideas, but hopefully that's giving you time to try some things out. You can do this again with a totally different color kind of palette, and you'll get different ideas. You'll discover different things. Like, nothing's ever the same when you sit down and do art, because you're never the same. Like, you shift every day. You feel a little bit different. And so this is not, I mean, you could just do this once and be like, that's enough for me. I do this a lot, you know, and it's, again, a warm-up. Like, I could now go into art making and feel like I've already had a play. I've made oopsie mistakes and fantastic discoveries, but it's all fun and freeing. I feel really kind of warmed up in my body as well, but also my mind. So that's what we're aiming for when we do activities like this, to get us ready to shift into something else. And if you're not shifting into anything else, just like allowing yourself to have that pocket of time for creativity, all on one page, so many different things. I feel inspired. So please like this video, subscribe, leave a comment about your favorite little quadrant that you did. And this will dry, so as always, we've got to hurry up and wait with watercolor. And so I'll come back and show you how it dried in a moment. But yeah, I'd love to hear how you went. All right, so I've given this lots of time to dry, and now I'm going to peel off some of the things. Well, that wasn't a peel off, was it? Very interesting textures in there, where the pigments grouped in the creases and made some spaces. In fact, when the paper dried, it was really giving quite a distinct differentiation between those different spaces. You can see the actual grain of that pigment coming through. Now here's my salt, and let's give it a rub off. Pink. Let me just toss this away for a moment. So yeah, in one of my other videos too, because of the weather here currently, the salt's not doing what it usually does. It's doing something different though. It's very discreet kind of texture, almost like sandstone texture. So it's kind of pebbly and pimply and something kind of interesting about that. So it's more of a discreet texture that's come through, and I put that down to things just being a little bit more wet today. And what I could do if I wanted to try another experiment is do a lighter wet wash and chuck some salt on and just see having less water would activate the salt a bit more. And let me just show you an example of what I mean, because on a different day where I did a similar amount of water, this is what I got, right? So it kind of just depends on the variables, depends on the weather, and depends on how you do it on that day. But more practice and play means that you get different results, and it's just about trying it out. And this is very interesting. Gosh, it looks like, or it's got a very organic feel to it, like like I've sliced through the middle of something, but it also has a bit of a snowflake close-up kind of feel too. But yeah, it's got a very organ looking kind of pattern to me. So I'm just going to put that aside. So this is very different, and I really do put this down to the weather and maybe my application. So however yours turned out, I'd love to know. And look, I have said in my other videos, like, I'm not an expert on watercolor, but like what I offer is techniques, and with watercolor we just accept what kind of happens and then change as we need to. I put a little bit more salt down here too, and oh, the salt is now making marks. But oh yeah, like it's just got this. I'm just gonna chuck this off for a minute. So yeah, you got that kind of spotty effect. I quite like that, and I didn't know that could happen. So yeah, the salt has kind of dissolved and kind of merged with the pigment a little bit and is holding tight. But that's sometimes what happens. Okay, so other moments there, I love just how these kind of dried, and the details that have come through there. The gradient's interesting to me. It's a very subtle one. And this is just what I created today. So this is a quick 6-part grid. I've tested out some techniques to see what I can do, and this was just a warm-up to just have a play. So you can come back and do this video at any time and have that support of being stepped through it. You can pause the video at any time. If it goes too fast for you, you can fast forward. If it's going too slow for you, it's your journey. And yeah, take a photo, send it to me. I'm at Mark and Movement over on Instagram and Facebook. And make sure you check out the other bonus videos that are also part of the Watercolor Tech and Play series. And there'll be more art-based tech and play videos coming up for different mediums. So make sure you subscribe and also like this video. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you had a really fun time playing and discovering yeah, what would happen if you put all your techniques on a page and separated them. And this is a really great reference to hold on to whenever you're feeling bored. You could just pick one of these to try, and it's just a nice thing to try. And maybe you do one, maybe you do many. It's just a nice warm-up to get you started anytime you're sitting down to do a bit of art and you're just not sure where to start. Start here, you know, step your way through it. All right, thank you, and catch you soon.